Welcome, everyone. Special podcast tonight. We are blessed to have a couple of very high level community college, junior college, whatever you call it, softball teams in our area. Tonight we've got Ryan Clark from Gadsden State. How are you, Coach Clark?
I'm good. How are you guys?
I'm good, but we've already discussed how ugly Phil is. But I'm gonna get to ask the questions first, so I get to go. I get to shot off.
But before you do that, that's the pot calling the kettle black, ain't it?
Yes, it is. Hey, Coach, I was sitting here, and right before we got on, I was eating pizza. And I know that's a crazy comparison, but it got me to thinking about your career. And I was like, Coach has had a variety of careers. Because, Coach, I think you were the next person in line to get a head football coaching job in that area, too. Was there ever a consideration not to go back to girls softball? Because I go back to a question I asked you when you were the defensive coordinator at Sylvania. I asked you about head coaching jobs, and you almost seemed like you had something else planned. Girls softball always is in your blood.
Yeah, once I was able to be around it for the 5 years that I was around it earlier in my career, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I'd went to baseball, but I always knew that I wanted to get back to softball. Loved football, but I just felt like spring sports is really where I was supposed to be at.
And y'all had a very successful run at Sylvania. And you even stayed on after you had been appointed the head coach at Gadsden to spend another year with a coach and with some kids that you'd grown really fond of.
I did. I stayed. I was able to volunteer that fall when I had time to get up there, and was able to do some things. Got to still sit in the press box on Friday nights and be a part of it, and didn't want to leave those guys hanging so late. And that was one of the things we talked about when I got hired here, was that I wanted to make sure they were okay with me doing that from Gadsden's standpoint. So I was able to still help those guys and break down some film and make it to some morning practices before I would come to work here. We'd practice at 6 a.m. and I was able to do some of that and be there on Friday nights.
Coach, you were a great football coach. I think Coach Fan, he ran the offense, you ran the defense. Y'all were a team.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun too. It was always he was the boss, but we worked really well together, and we had a good respect there between the two, and he trusted me with the defense, and I was always appreciative of that. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Coach, you also left baseball at Sylvania and went back to girls softball. It just was the first love, correct?
Yeah. I mean, really baseball growing up, I loved that sport. I loved it more than I loved playing football, to be honest with you. And so that was a hard decision. I had a really good group of baseball guys that I was able to pass on, and they're still being successful to this day. I was able to pass those on and move over to the softball world.
Coach, last question before we get into Gadsden State. And you know, I hosted his show for 2 years. Love Coach Van. Love him to death. Worst habit as a head coach and best habit as a head coach that you saw him as a football coach that you've been able to take to softball?
Oh, that I've been able to help me. His practice detail really helped me in my coaching. His attention to detail at practice, as far as making sure every single thing was covered. He would never forget that. I have a tendency sometimes that we would go out to baseball or softball practice, and we would go do everything that we needed to do, and then I would get back and, I forgot this. That guy he never forgot that. He never forgot one thing about practice, and that was one thing that I think he's helped me with, because now I'm a lot more detail oriented. I actually carry a practice schedule around with me. That's probably PTSD from working with him, but that's probably the best thing that I carried over from Coach Van. He's a great coach. He does a lot of good things, but that was probably the one that helped me the most in coaching.
And I'll go for it. I'll answer the worst thing. You've never got a 15-yard penalty for unsportsmanlike during the softball game. I can say
I've got ejected, but I've never got a 15-yard penalty. No, I got one in football one time.
Oh Lord! Let's
Yeah.
move before I have to justify Coach Van.
Yeah.
Hey, before I go to Phil, last question: your facility is now completed or 90% complete?
We're getting close. I would say, I think the last meeting they called it 75%. We're still looking at mid-March to be able to be on our facilities. We got started a little bit later. We break still. I think everything got approved and we broke ground at the first of April. So trying to get that finished in 11 and a half months is going to be impressive anyway for them to be able to do that.
Phil, we're so lucky to have two schools with world-class facilities. I mean, I think facilities, Gadsden State is going to be bar none nice as we can find around it. That sure does open a lot of windows for a lot of young ladies, which we'll talk to Coach about. North Alabama, North Georgia, Tennessee. So it's a nice feeling we're in.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. So, well, Coach, I want to ask you, of course, you know John Kirby?
I do. I know of him.
Yeah.
I don't know him personally.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about it. He was talking about in the days when Gadsden State, had softball and baseball, but they didn't put a whole lot into it. And but now they have brought it back strong. Softball's come back strong. And, and to be successful, to keep up with the Hansvilles of the world, you're going to have first-class facilities. And he and I were talking about that he feels like Gadsden State's doing right.
They are. Our president's very committed to our athletics and, academics, obviously. But, we're doing it right this time. I tell a lot of people, some had questions early on about, they shut the program down before. What makes you think they're not going to do it again? I said, well, I will tell you this. I'm not putting up a $10.5 million facility to let it ever go away again. So they're doing it right this time. Athletic director, Coach Lewis, he's doing a great job. For sure, I think Gadsden State athletics are being done right at the time. And I can't speak for what was before, but I do know that right now that it's getting done the right way.
Yeah, well, that sounds good. Because naturally you got to bring those kids in. And I think Gadsden State's really put this into softball at a great time, because now that you have all this stuff like NIL and transfer portals and all the things that goes on, you're going to be able to bring kids in because the developmental part of it, because like Coach Guthrie said, at the highest level, kids are not being developed anymore, because if they don't like the way things are going, they'll transfer to somewhere else. So they're losing the fundamental part of the game. And he goes, that's where the junior college level has an advantage now.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think with all the jumping around, rosters get filled in a weird way at the Division I, Division II level now, because they're still taking your high school players, but they're not having to take as many, because if I'm a mid-major and I see a transfer from Oklahoma versus, a high school senior, I'm probably going to take the kid that's played at Oklahoma, so it's not impossible for high school students still to go play at that top level. It just made it a little more difficult now that everybody's able to move around and fill rosters with players who already have experience, which also helps us. If we've got players coming out of Gadsden State and they've been developed for 2 more years and they've got actual game experience under their belt, they're going to be more marketable than somebody coming straight out of high school.
Well, do you think that, you're probably going to hear a lot more from, 4-year colleges? They're going to keep up with you guys a whole lot more, because they're going to want players that are developed and they're going to depend on you to springboard, 2-year players when they get there, because you don't know when they get to the junior college level if they want to play 4 years or not. They kind of decide that when they get there, don't they?
They do, and a lot of female athletes in particular, they can get that. A lot of them want to go into nursing, or they want to go into something that takes a lot of that time up, and they may say, well, let me go play 2 more years and then I'm going to focus on my career. And you see that a lot as well. But as far as staying in contact with 4-year schools, I've got several that have called me just since we played our fall, and are looking at a few of our players.
Yeah. What? Go ahead, Randy. Yeah.
Is it a trickle down, coach, that not as many people sign Division One, so there's more athletes at Division Two, and it's like even if a kid is Division Two who wants to play Division One, she might choose to go to Gadsden State and play 2 years so she can finish those 2 years at a different level.
Yeah, you see that some as well. If they get to the Division One or Division Two level and they feel like, hey, I need to go develop a little bit more, then yeah, you see that trickle down into they'll start looking at their local junior college more or less, or just a junior college that's been successful, just to help develop them and get them back to that level or even the level higher than what they were at before.
Nice. Sorry, Phil. I just thought I was thinking that. Go ahead.
Oh, that's fine. Well, Coach, so tell me this: when you start recruiting players and when you're out there, trying to find folks to come to Gadsden State, if I'm a young lady that's looking to play softball at the next level, what type of player, what kind of player are you looking for?
Oh, well, we definitely want players with high energy. And not only do we want good athletes, we want good people. Because in a team, you have a couple bad apples that can spoil the whole bunch in a very fast way. So we look for good people as well as good athletes. And that's what we're trying to build here is a team full of not only good athletes, but people that, you wouldn't mind selling to the next level and not have to worry about that person when you do sell them to, a 4-year school, Division I, Division II. When they come calling, you don't have to say, well, good player, but off the field, or, you have these issues, usually you don't want to have that conversation. So we're looking for just great athletes that love the game of softball and are also good people.
Yeah, that's definitely so. Well, and the thing is, Coach, what I'm liking about this junior college level, most of our athletes around here, especially the girls, at the end of their playing high school softball days, they're kind of contemplating, because there's not a whole lot to choose from. Well, they're going to go to college, and, probably the 2 best fields are the medical field or maybe a teacher. Well, when you get to the junior college level, I think it kind of will broaden their horizon. They might decide they want to go to be a college coach. They might want to get into video. And I think it opens up options and opens up their horizon, because they're also going to be with a bunch of players that are also goal-oriented. So I think this is great for the young ladies that come to play at the level that you're at.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. We tell everybody when they come in anyway, you're going to take 2 years of basics and kind of get your feet wet in the college life, and get a good idea of what you really want to do after this, whether it be play 2 more years and find a degree that works with that, or start your career.
Yeah, that sounds like for sure a winner there. Well, Coach, tell us about the facility that's being built. That you said y'all spend $10 million on it. Describe it just a little bit. Tell us what all it has.
So we're going to have baseball and softball are both getting brand new fields. So baseball, softball, they're going to be beside each other. They're going to be full turf. Our locker rooms are going to be on the back side of each of our dugouts on the third base side. We're getting a shared concession bathroom area in between. We're getting the elevated bleachers that wrap around the backstop with the chair back seating in the middle. So, it's going to be, and we've also got the LED lights and we've got all kinds of stuff. I'm sure I'm probably missing something, but, main points are brand new fields, all turf, with a locker room on the back of the dugout. And for us, there was no need to really build weight room and stuff like that because we had athletics here already, so we already have our weight room. We've got all the stuff up in the gym that we need for that portion, and then we're also getting a shared batting cage between baseball and softball as well.
Yeah, well, that's good. That probably saves in the long run, saves a whole lot of money
Yeah, it does.
with funding to sports because it costs lots of money to get programs going now. It's a big time expense. And like we talk about, even in high school, now college athletics is an investment, and you expect some kind of return out of it.
Yep, I agree.
Well, Coach, I want to ask you, we were talking about, recruiting and whatnot, and we kind of discussed this off the air. We're not, not going to discuss any people or whatnot. But when it comes to recruiting, naturally, you players that are softball first most of the time, but there's an exception to the rule. Are you open to players possibly playing two sports at Gadsden State?
Not typically, but there's going to be there's a few players out there right now that we would make that exception for, and they know who they are because they've already been talked to about it. But there are a few out there that we make that exception for and really work with them, and just because they're that good of an athlete that we think could help both programs. But that's a yes and no answer.
Yeah.
Typically no, but if it's that special athlete, then maybe a certain position, then yes.
Yeah, definitely so. And I understand, and it's kind of a broad question, but it's something that, you're going to have asked, naturally, time
Right.
and
Oh yeah,
time
no
again.
doubt.
Yeah. Well, Coach, tell me this, after when you first came in, you've got this thing going on, field being built, players coming in, you had spring or had fall practice, you had fall games. And I know everything was running at you at once, and I guess has things kind of slowed down a little bit to where you're in some kind of routine?
Yeah, so we've got a good routine going now. It was a learning curve for everybody because we were, not only a new team, but we were also new to this campus. So, everybody had to get adjusted to having, baseball and softball back and everything. But yeah, we're in more of a routine now, and it's kind of slowed down, and we're just moving on and trying to speed the last few days up before we start playing games.
Yeah, definitely. So, well, Coach, when the fall started, of course, and I know every coach is going to be optimistic, especially starting a new program. And I'm sure there were a lot of nerves going into when you started the fall season, because am I putting the product on the field? Have my players developed to where I want them to be? Was you pleasantly surprised once they hit the field?
I was. We competed very well. We had a lot of things we needed to fix through the fall, of course. Because they walked on campus August 13th and we played a game on September 10th. So, that was a very quick turnaround, and there were some things that we were able to fix through the fall and work through and got much better by the end of the fall than where we were at the beginning. But yeah, I was pleased with the effort that our players were giving, and they were being very coachable in the fall and doing what we were asked or what we asked them to do, and I feel like they developed about as well as you can in that short of amount of time.
Well, tell me this, Coach. How do you do some of your team building? I know you probably do it on the field and practicing, but I think a lot of times in sports like softball, where you kind of team build is when you take those road trips, and these young ladies kind of have to depend on each other. They may need to borrow makeup or anything like that. I think it builds a camaraderie when you hit the road because they have to count on each other. Is that a part of developing your team?
Sure. I think, at the junior college level, you don't have the bigger trips always. You may take one or two a year. So the overnight trips, I think we've got one this spring is the only one we're going to go overnight for. But for the most part, everything's pretty local. What we like to do is like just a couple of weeks ago, we actually took our girls to a golf simulator place in Aniana. It was pretty neat. So we do stuff like that, and then we feed them, and just have dinners together and stuff like that. Try to get them, used to being around each other early, and then keep them to where they realize we're also people outside of softball, coaches and players too. They need to know that there is a little bit of a separation there, that we are still human off the field, and I think that has probably helped us the most, is just going places as a team and not thinking anything about softball when we're there, and just letting them enjoy being around each other.
Well, Coach, I want to ask you this as far as being a softball coach, is what attracts you to softball is, young ladies play with a lot of intensity. They play with their emotions on their sleeves sometimes, and sometimes they're a lot funner to watch than boys are.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Now, 99% of the time, that's a good thing. And then, you get that 1%er that sometimes that emotion runs a little too high. So, we talk to them about, staying even, and good things happen, trying to stay even, bad things happen, we're going to stay even, but I agree 100%. The intensity they play with typically is way more fun to watch.
Yeah, I can understand that, and I do. I nowadays in high school basketball, I'd rather watch the girls' game. And used to, when I was in school, it was like everybody was ready to go home when the girls played. But it's a totally different flip, because it's just so fun to watch them play with the intensity they play with. They very rarely have any lapses during the game.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no doubt. They play with our girls are doing a better job now of staying focused throughout a game, and playing with a little higher energy. That was something we had to really push early in the fall, because you got to think about all these girls are coming in, especially in the first year. We had 30 girls on our roster in the fall, and probably 24 of those had never played together. So you had a couple that were teammates prior, but just learning each other and learning how to feed off of each other energy wise.
Yeah, definitely. So, and the ones on the bench are very important too, because a lot of times you'll hear them start, the cheering mode, and, that kind of keeps everybody up, keeps you in a positive frame of mind. And, the young ladies in the dugout have an important job when all the others are out on the field.
Sometimes they're what push you across for a win, and if they're providing the energy from the dugout, they're doing just as much of a job as the people on the field sometimes.
Yeah, and I see that quite often. They really keep everybody. Even when you're down, they're over there still. Because the worst thing you want to do in softball is get that head down, because it can get away from you in a hurry.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Yeah. You don't want that to spiral. When that spiral, it's hard to catch it.
Yeah, definitely. So, well, Coach, I want to ask you about your staff. Talk about your staff. Who do you have on staff, and kind of what their roles are as coaches?
All right, so we've got Coach Russo, Coach David Russo. He's been in college coaching for a very, very long time. He's probably been doing this over 30 years. It's funny because his story's similar to mine. He started with baseball and then flipped over to softball, and so he coached college baseball for a long time at Jeff State and some other places in the state of Alabama, and then some in Louisiana and some up north. But he's coached for a very long time, and then the previous 9 years he was at Wallace and Dothan. Had a very successful career there. They went to the World Series, got third in the country, and he had retired from there. And so I took this job, and he came up here one day and was like, "Listen, I don't want to be a head coach anymore, but if you need any help, just let me know." And I said, "Well, then you need to come here and be a full-time assistant, And so he did. He's still semi-retired, but he's still here every day, and that's huge to have somebody with that experience, and that's been there and done that for a very long time. He's been great. He works with our hitters. He coaches third during the game. And then Coach Hart, Zach Hart. You may remember him. He's coached up on Sand Mountain for a while, and he was he's coached just about every sport imaginable. And most recently, he was down in South Alabama. Uh, he was going to be the head softball coach, and he was a defense coordinator down there. And just having that contact, the luck of the draw, he got a job back up here in Gadsden, so he's volunteering and going to help us out this spring as well.
Yeah, well, that sounds good. Well, tell me this, Coach. What kind of a coach are you as far as softball goes? Your coaching style. Do you put a lot into? Are you more of a pitcher type coach or a hitter type coach? A little bit of both. Do you want power hitter? Want to play small? What kind of style are you going to play?
Well, it depends on the players that we have here. I can adjust to anything that we need to adjust to. I'm okay with playing small ball to get a win, and I'm okay with 3 home runs in a game to get a win. You know, it all depends on the roster and how we're swinging the bat that day. So, you know, but back to your first question, I work with any part of the game that we need to. I prefer the defensive side of the ball with infield pitchers, catchers. I prefer the defensive side, but you know, I can work with hitters as well. It's just lucky that I've got a great hitting coach on my staff that I don't have to do that this year. So I get to focus primarily on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's good. Well, Randy, you want to ask a few?
Well, I got one from Howie Cheney, Mr. Sylvania Realm. And I'm going to include Coach Hart in this. With you having been at Sylvania and Coach Hart being on Sand Mountain for all those years, does that give you an advantage to go in that area, or are you better known in that area to try to recruit?
Well, I know this. If I hear of a player that's up in North Alabama, period, I've probably reached out to that coach at some point in time about a scheduling. We may have played them. You know, I may have coached against them at some point in time. So that part has helped as far as being able to contact all these coaches, and especially in the northeast part of the state. Had a lot of contacts with all the high school coaches up there. So I think, the being at Sylvania part, probably the contacts that I was able to pick up by other high school coaches in North Alabama's, it has been an advantage.
Coach, that's awesome too. And like I said, I think you were well on your way to being a head football coach, but that wasn't the path for you. Coach, I've been able, first of all, I'm a fan of Gadsden State's uniforms in all sports. And I think it's such a good, besides it being very close to Georgia colors, which I have to excuse out of it, you have a great palette to work with. And have you designed the uniforms, or was there a team that designed them?
Well, no, I designed all of our uniforms, and I think it doesn't matter what you buy with female athletes. This will be good because they actually said something today about it. You can't make all 30 of them happy. So, you know, I designed them. I think they look good. So, we'll go with that, you know.
I love Gadsden State's uniform design, and there are other sports too. You know, it's always very standoutish, very, very marketable, and you know, like the jacket you've got on tonight, I think I'd wear it. You know.
Oh yeah, I actually have been looking for a jacket like this for years, and you know, Russell had went away with selling the jacket like this. Well, BSN just started recently making these jackets again, so I was really excited, and I was probably one of their first orders when he called and told me that they were making these. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. And young ladies, you got nice uniforms. I think it's the black, Coach. I mean, you got too much black maybe for some in the uniform as some. My daughter, she plays for a high school that their colors are black and gold, and they all wanted gold uniforms, and they didn't get it.
I mean, that's what it was. It was black pants that they were complaining about today. You know, the rest of them, they said they were fine. You know, but I don't know. They're all made in the same place. I don't know. I told them I don't know. I just told them I wanted softball pants. So, but I finally just walked out of the argument and just walked out. Nobody was going to win that one.
Coach,
It was,
that was a smart
yeah,
move.
it was one of those you just feel like you just know that you're not going to win that argument either way for them or for you. So
Absolutely. Coach, just to hit a little bit, I know a little bit about your family. I actually have met your wife at one point and your oldest child.
mhm.
And now you have two. You just
I
added a
do.
position.
Oh yeah,
What role does, and being a college coach, it's year round.
it is.
It changes the home life, and they have to, especially your wife, Caitlin, that can't shoot, Caitlin Clark, that can't shoot as well as the other one.
No, she don't shoot it as well. She probably can shoot a little bit. She went to Pisgah, so she might can shoot a little bit, but not like the one in the WNBA. No, she don't shoot it like her.
Yeah, we were trying to get a contract for the podcast.
Right.
How big of a role now has she picked up in the day to day of the Clark family when you have to be on the road for a while and home at midnight? And it's tough sometimes for a coach's wife. It's the hardest job in sports.
Oh, I agree 100%. Good thing for her is when we first met, I was already coaching two sports in high school, so I was already coaching year round, and we did more in the summers actually at the high school level than we were able to do in college, and so she was kind of she married into that situation, so she had a good idea of what she was getting now. With two kids now, this will be the first season with two kids, and I think they barely survived the fall, but they made it through, and she's holding things down at home and she's doing a great job there. And so very appreciative of that always. And she knows that. And, we're going to get through this spring, and then Brody will be a year old next time we play, and things will probably be a little bit easier, but this spring will probably be a little bit tough
Good
for
kids.
all of us.
Yeah, it will be for everybody, but great kids grow up at the ballpark. And
That's
I'll
no doubt.
say that for my own. Coach, and Phil, I'll come to you after this real quick. Coach, I'm a Tennessee graduate, and we've talked about that, and Coach had jokes about it and stuff, but I love Karen Wheatley's done a great job Tennessee softball, but sometimes I think Karen and Ralph too, Coach Wheatley, they would recruit center fielders and make them corner infielders, recruit shortstops and make them third basemen. Is there an ability that they had, or is it an ability of yours for a kid that's playing out of position? Because they're probably the best athlete at any high school, so you're going to play them at center field. Is there an ability as a coach out looking at these kids that sometimes you go, God, she's a great center fielder, but she'd be a great left fielder, or
Yeah.
he's a great shortstop, but I'm moving her to second base. Is that something you do, or how do you handle that?
Yeah, you can kind of see a little bit. You can evaluate with arm strength and how they move left to right. And if you've got a great shortstop that's got a great glove that may not move as well left to right, then you might automatically consider them a third baseman as they're coming in. That's conversations you have with them when they get here. And but typically it's easier, and it makes a lot of sense. Well, what a lot of coaches do, they recruit straight up the middle. And what I mean by that is catcher, pitcher, short, center field. A lot of people do that, but you know, you say that, but then you've got to have a first baseman. And it's not as easy just to throw all shortstops out there and say one of y'all go figure out how to catch a ball that's bouncing in the dirt, or so um, it's easier to do that. A lot of times in high school, the best athletes on the field are going to play center and short, unless you've got a good high school team, and then they're playing probably in the positions that they need to be playing in, and you're able to really evaluate them at those positions. But yeah, there's a lot of coaches that do that. But if we go out and we see a third baseman we like that we think could help us at third base, then we're going to recruit her as a third baseman, and maybe have that conversation with her. When you get here, you're going to play third, and if you're not as mobile as we need you to be, then we're going to move you over to first. If we want your bat in the lineup and you're able to still field the ball at you and do some things, catch a ball thrown to you, then she may be a better first baseman, and she just never knew it because she's having to play third.
Yeah.
So and that goes with the people you recruit. You've got to that goes back to being good people and the ones that just want to be on the field and they're going to do what they're asked to do and play the position that you need them to play. Just for instance, we had a player come in the fall who was playing shortstop for us primarily. She's now playing center field. She is as good in center field as I've seen. But she was open to moving there, and that's where she's at now, and that's I think that's her spot that's going to get her to the next level.
Coach Phil, I want to tack on one, and then I'll come to you. Can you have too many people behind the plate or in the circle? Do you always lean to over rostering those two positions?
If you've got an extra one, you better throw a pitcher in there. If you've got an extra spot or an extra scholarship, you're going to probably throw it on a pitcher if you can. And no, catchers they're hard to keep healthy. For an entire year, they get beat up back there. If you get catchers that stay healthy for an entire year, you've done a great job with them and rotated them out. And so we like to have 3 to 4 catchers. Just for that reason, we play 88 games. We play up to 88 games in a calendar year, so that's a lot of ball games to catch. So it's a lot better on them physically in the long run if you spread that out and you've got multiple catchers that can do that.
Phil, I don't know if you know, I was a catcher in high school. I have the record for bullpen sessions because they wouldn't let me into a game.
Yeah.
Catcher in the state of Tennessee. So go ahead.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. I always played third base or center field. But and coaching, you were talking about you better have all the pitchers you can have because pitching is probably the hardest position to evaluate when you're recruiting because you just don't never know how they're going to do when they get to the level you're at.
Oh yeah, that's there's no doubt about that. You can evaluate and if that player you could watch them all spring and they could be throwing 60, 61 and step on your campus and throwing 56 and say, hey, what in the world happened in the last 2 months? What have you been doing? Have you been doing what we've been asking you to do? Things like that. But pitching, it's always tricky too, just because you never know if somebody's sore and throwing the day you get to go watch and they may be throwing a little slower than what your scouting report may have said on them, or maybe they're throwing a little harder that day, and that's always a good thing. But you get there and somebody's told you about this great pitcher and they can't throw a strike. That's just some of the part of the evaluation you've got to filter through when looking at pitchers.
Well, Coach, do you feel like, and of course I know Randy wanted to ask you something about recruiting. Do you feel like the competitive part of softball in this area, especially in Northeast Alabama, that you're going to be able to field a team with a good number of local players?
Yes, we've got several local currently, and then the class of 25, we've got some local players in that group as well. It is very competitive, especially adding 2 teams up here, and 3 teams in North Alabama have been added in the last 4 years, I believe. So, it's definitely more competitive than it was 5 years ago. And so you're having to really get out and go early and talk to these players and, convince them that this is where they need to be at.
Yeah. Well, Coach, I want to ask you about this. Of course, I know Randy wants to ask you a few more things, probably about recruiting, but some of the young ladies that have come in, I know, if they're listening, they want to hear their names. Who are some of the ones, and I know you probably can't name everybody, who are some of the ones that you're counting on heavily coming into the spring?
Well, I'll tell you, one person that's been a great bat for us the entire fall and now leading into the spring is Abby Payne. She swings it really well. Really good player. I got her from just down the road at Oaks Bluff, and she was one of those that was going unnoticed, and that she was kind of getting overlooked because she was just at a 3A school up in Northeast Alabama, and they were kind of getting overlooked. And she's one of the best hitters that we could have. and she's done a great job. We got Sydney Simpson that came in on a transfer pitcher. She's also from this area, and we were lucky that she wanted to come back home and left Northwest Florida State and came here during the fall, and she had a phenomenal fall. And we've got several players that are doing really good for us. Tinley Johnson's playing left field right now. She's batting leadoff. She's a really good leadoff batter, and we can count on her. She's going to be on. She's probably going to have a 400 on base percentage. I hope 350. And she's very good when runners are in scoring position. You got Madison Allen playing center field. She was the one that I was talking about earlier that had played some short for us early, and I'm telling you, she's as good as anybody in center field. And Kennedy Johnson's been playing right. Comes to us from Pell City and changed a few things when she got here and kind of changed a position like we talked about earlier. She's played some outfield in her career, but had been recently having to play first base at her high school. So moving her back out to outfield and getting her acclimated to be out there, and changed a couple of things with the swing, and she's hitting it really well. And Lainey Williams from center she's doing a great job. She's actually right now working more at third than at catcher. She was at catcher in the fall, and she's played both positions, and she's doing really good at third. And at shortstop right now, we've got Hartley Rice has moved in from Stillman College, and she wanted to get back up this way in Northeast Alabama. She's originally from Tuscaloosa, but she's up here and doing a really good job and really good defensively, and swings the bat pretty well. And we got Ava Ramsey at first base. She's done a phenomenal job there, and she's as good defensively at first base as I've seen. Left-handed, swings it really well, left-handed as well. And then we rotate through our catchers. We've got Chloe Gaddis that's here, and she came to us. She had been at Carson Newman previously, and now she's here with us. And Allie Croy from Chattooga, Georgia, who swings the bat really, really well as well. And then Rachel McCown coming from Madison County, who can also play a little infield. And we like that she can do a lot of multiple things, and she's really good defensively. And then we've got other players that are going to rotate in. It's going to get some good playing time. J.C. Brooks is a defensive rotator right now, and Mary Beth Perrette and Lauren Farmer are probably some of our pinch hitters that we're going to go with earlier. And then we got the rest of our pitchers. You got Aubrey Kirsch from Villa Rica, Georgia, and Carly Crocker from Reform, and Marley Mosley and Kirby Wisner. They're going to get some time in the circle as well. And I know I forgot people, and that's okay. But they'll just have to tell me about it tomorrow. We got Adasia Wilson, really good infielder, really, really good speed. And Reagan Sanders, and they're both from Oxford. And then Barrett Sneed from Sardis. So, we've got a lot of players that are really close. I know I'm forgetting somebody, and I'm going to feel bad for it. But Clancy Bright and Laura Wood, they're both infielders as well. That's going to get some rotational time. But anyway, I hope I didn't forget anybody. But if I did, I'm sure I'll hear about it.
You can always come back and do version 2 with us and pick them up.
Yeah. I think I got everybody, but I may have missed one or two. Who knows?
Hey, if I do good, you know good and well they like to hear their names. That's part of it. Yeah. Family members do too. Yeah. That's just the way this works. Well, Coach, when players come in to Gadsden State grade-wise, you hear about all this stuff. It's kind of the grade standard, just pretty. You want good athletes with good grades, but the grade standards, there's room to improve your grades when you come in at the junior college level. There's not these big, huge restrictions, are there?
No, you can come in, you can get boost your GPA, do what you're supposed to in the classroom, and have a really good GPA, and it's going to help you move on and transfer to that next level, and be able to possibly get a scholarship at the next level just because you've come here and ended up with a great GPA, good grades.
Yeah. So, because of course, that's kind of what in the past, that's what junior college has been for. Well, tell me this, Coach, the local community, are you getting a lot? I mean, I know y'all do some marketing and whatnot. Are you getting a lot of feedback? Is there a lot of interest in the baseball and softball as far as maybe season tickets go? Are you getting a lot of local people talking behind the scenes?
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. We had a fall game here, and you guys know the fall doesn't count for anything for record. It's really just a scrimmage game, and I think Guthrie even talked about the one we had at their place. But every home fall game, it was packed. We would have those during the middle of the day sometimes, and they would be packed. So, community is very excited, and there's a lot of support here, and it's going to be exciting to see the first home game we have, how many people end up being able to come to that and support the softball team.
Yeah, naturally, when you're able to recruit at a local level, that's going to bring in families, and naturally, instead of just parents from way out of town, that gives them, if they're only got to travel an hour or so to come to a softball game, they're going to show up just about every home game.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. And then, we've actually started selling season passes. And I think we've sold several of those already. Just because, people are going to want to be here and they're going to be here. So we're very excited about that. Very excited to see the support that we're getting and the attention that we're getting here.
Well, of course, season pass, I'm sure there's different levels of season passes, but just says a walk-up general admission ticket, how much are they going to be?
I believe they're around $9.50 because we use a ticketing app. So they're a little cheaper than some, but they're a little more than some. But I think it's a fairly good price for a doubleheader. I think general admission is going to be about $9.50.
Yeah, because all your conference games are going to be doubleheaders, aren't they?
Correct. Everything that we have scheduled currently is a doubleheader.
Yeah, so when you see on the schedule, there's going to be 2 games. Well, talk about. I know some people can go in and look at the schedule. Tell us, tell us some of the schools you're going to be playing at the conference level coming up.
Oh, at the conference level?
Yeah.
So we start with Wallace-Hansville, which is it's going to be a good test right out of the gate. You want the team that's been on the top for a while, and that's who we're going to get, and they're going to be coached really well. I know Sally Beth. I've been around her for a very long time, known her for a long time. She's going to do a great job there, and that's a really tough program to do traditionally. So to get them first, you kind of get to measure yourself and see where you're at. And then I believe it's Northwest Shoals after that. And I know I said a lot about Hansville being a good program. Every program that we're going to play in our conference is pretty good. There's not a bad team in our conference. And then we've got Northwest Shoals and Shelton and Coastal Alabama, South. And then you've got Southern Union and Calhoun and Northeast and Sneed.
Wow.
So that's our conference, and it's a tough conference. It's good softball teams all over that conference and some good coaches in that conference as well.
Well, the good thing about that is the travel. You've got some natural rivals already, and then travel miles is not really going to be that bad.
No, we're actually in one of the better spots of anybody in the conference. Other than the trip we take to Coastal South, I believe all of our conference games are 2 hours or less away. So we're in a really good spot, and being 55 minutes from Northeast and 35 minutes at the max from Sneed, we're in a pretty good spot.
Well, the young ladies right now, are they chomping at the bit, ready to get started?
Yeah, they're tired of practicing. Nah, I know that. We had that talk after practice yesterday, and I was like, listen, I get it. I know, the dog days of winter, they're no fun. But it's things we have to get done and things that we're working on, maybe strategically or, putting in on offense, or maybe even some defensive things that we've been putting in and working on and refreshing from the fall. But yeah, they're ready to get on the field and play somebody other than each other.
Coach, this time of year, softball gets started real early and it's a lot of cool weather. And, I always thought when I played baseball that, you get a lot better when your arms get looser and it's a lot warmer weather. You have to, in the cold weather, you have to warm up more. You have to stretch more. How do you combat, having injuries? Because cold weather's a bad time to where you can, pop something or pull something. How do you guard against that?
Well, I think doing the right things in the weight room and then preparing yourself before we play is always going to be better for you. If you just halfway go through your stretches, or you're not taking things we're doing in the weight room seriously and not doing them the correct way, then obviously we're going to have a higher risk of injury. But to me, that's why we stress a lot on weight room and pregame and pre-practice stretching, and also nutrition plays a big part in that too. If you're not putting in things into your body that needs to go in and helps you recover and helps you build, then you're not doing yourself any favors there either. So I think for the most part, if we're doing what we're supposed to in the weight room and stretching the way we're supposed to, you're going to have freak things that happen, and there's nothing you can control about that. But there's a lot of injuries that are preventable through doing things right in the weight room and doing things right pregame with stretching and things like that.
Well, you're talking about all that, all those types of things. Do you kind of give them a list of what's good, what's bad, or do y'all kind of have a nutritionist that works with the team?
Well, we're kind of in between all that stuff right now. So we've just picked up a new strength and conditioning program, and we're working with Tinsley Performance out of Birmingham, and they're doing all of our weight room stuff, and they come here, they do a phenomenal job, and they will specialize workouts. If somebody's got a shoulder or a knee injury, they specialize the workout. So the workout side of things, we don't have to handle very much. I go in there and oversee the workout, but that's ran by Tinsley Performance, and they're doing a phenomenal job here at Gadsden State. But the nutrition part, I think, is more right now is we don't have a nutritionist here, and that's just more or less word of mouth and trying to get them to do the right things and make the right choices when going to the calf.
Yeah. Do you feel like that's something that Gadsden State might add in the future? Kind of even be flexible for all sports.
I don't think that we ever had a nutritionist, but I think that it may be more of a common thing that we start talking about the nutrition for our athletes across the board, because I feel like that's very important when you're talking about recovery and you're talking about performance. Nutrition plays a very high role in that.
Yeah, because people like and I've heard Coach Paul Benefield talk about this. He said if you're eating right, if you're like especially he was big on about maxing out and weights, and he said if you're not getting the right amount of rest and you're not eating right, then you are not going to get better in the weight room. So nutrition is very important.
Yep, for sure. I mean, you're burning all that stuff out, and if you're not replacing it with stuff that's going to make you better, then you're just going to be in a slow incline or maybe even plateau at some point in time and not getting better.
Well, go ahead, Randy. I'll let you hit it on.
Coach, last 5 minutes here. We've got two things I want to cover real fast. First one, Howie, the other River City Media employee, our third monster to our three-headed monster, he made a comment and wanted to know what kind of academic support you have playing 88 games a year and you're able to offer your players.
So, we are on the road a lot, so they'll miss classes and stuff like that. I'm guessing that's probably what he's talking about, being gone so much and, having that many games. So our girls, when they come into campus, they realize, or they know that they have 4 hours of study hall per week. And then as we get to the midterm, if they don't have a C, then we reduce that a little bit. But, we take that very seriously, because if you don't have the grades, it doesn't matter. That's one thing we try to tell them. If you don't make the grades, then it doesn't matter how good you're playing on the field, because you're not going to be there for very long. So study halls, we also have tutoring here at the school. We've got a couple of different avenues there for tutoring. We've got, special services, and then we've got anything from any subject you could need, right? So they have all the resources that they need at their hand, and we try to get them when they get our schedule to go talk to their professor and say, hey, I know this doesn't look great, but I'm going to miss this day, this day, this day, this day, so that they have an understanding before we ever start playing that they're going to miss these days, so that them and the instructor can start working this stuff out before we ever even get on the bus to go anywhere.
Well, I'm glad to hear that Coach Clark isn't going to be tutoring in differential calculus. We got to know our limitations in life. Coach.
Right. There's no doubt. Yeah, I'm not tutoring anybody in calculus
Coach,
or any type of math.
And we'll let you get out of here. And thank you for spending an hour with us. And we appreciate it. And please come back. We might not get you during the season, but maybe we can get you after the season when it slows back down again a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Randy, can I ask one more question, one that pops up in my head?
Yeah, Phil.
Yeah, just one more. Yeah, one, Coach, and you was kind of talking about this individually when you're evaluating young ladies. Do you bring them in and sit down with them to try to find out what their short-term goals are, long-term goals are, academic goals are, and athletic goals are? Because that's a very important part of the process.
Oh, there's no doubt that when we bring players in on a visit, we talk about all that stuff, because if what we're trying to offer doesn't fit in what their plans in for their life, then that's not the right fit. So we definitely bring them in and talk to them about all those things and see where what they're trying to do at Gadsden State. Do they want to move on to 4 years? Or when they move on, do they want to continue to play? So we ask all those questions when they're in our office for a visit.
Bill, does Molly want to play?
Yeah. She got interrupted. We got a basset hound here, and every once in a while she decides she wants some airtime.
That's all right.
One of the things that hit us talking is you have a good population. You're not too far from Rome. You're an hour 15 out of Birmingham. You're 2.5 hours from the state line. You really don't have to leave too many of the local areas to find a lot of good players. But where do you stretch that recruiting into? And I know if you had a great player in Texas, you take them, or Louisiana or wherever. But do you have a main recruiting base?
Well, the first group, it was we stayed mostly in Alabama and North Georgia. When we're recruiting, we're so close to the Georgia line. There's no reason for us not to be taking kids out of Georgia and all the way over into Atlanta. Atlanta's got such a huge population of good softball players that may not get picked up because there's not as many colleges over there as what we've got here. So really into the Atlanta area and trying to get moved up into the Chattanooga area, and then all the way up. We've got some players actually coming on some visits next week from Kentucky. I mean, we more or less we're going that direction instead of more south. There's a ton of colleges south, and you got 7 or 8 colleges after one player. And when you get up into Kentucky where there's no junior colleges, it's free game up there. And just like I was talking about in Atlanta, there's more kids than spots on rosters in Atlanta and in the state of Georgia in general. So for us, obviously we're going to stay in Alabama a lot, but it's nothing for us to take a player out of Atlanta or take a player out of Kentucky or get your player out of Florida every now and then or Mississippi. And we want to stay in the Southeast, but if we get somebody from Washington State that calls, then we'll take a look at them too. I'm not going to just bottle us up, but for the most part, we stay right now. The furthest north we've went is Kentucky, and the furthest east we've went is probably the Atlanta area.
Is it harder to recruit? Now, you talked about so many kids out of that North Georgia area, and you're so close, like you said, to the state line, and of course the Alabama area. But is it? You said it was easier for a kid out of Atlanta. But is it harder for a kid that may be in a city that has 4 or 5 college options like Birmingham has I think 7 or 8 probably.
Yeah, well, what happens? What I was just speaking of is you get kind of overlooked, as crazy as that may sound, in the Atlanta area because there's so many kids out there, and then like in Birmingham, same deal. You've got a lot of kids in the Birmingham area. We've been successful in Birmingham in the first 3 classes that we have, so Birmingham, they do have a lot of colleges down there, but if one kid's getting 7 or 8 offers, I'm a percentage guy, and when there's 10 people and your percentage is 10, it's not as good as when you're going head to head with somebody and it's 50. I like my chances a lot better. I mean, we've won some of those 10 percenters, but it's a lot more. It makes a lot more sense when you're going 50-50 on a kid, or even 33% on a kid instead of a 10.
Coach, and last question from me, unless Phil's got something followed up. When you're recruiting a young lady, now the camps are so important, I know, and you have a lot of camps too. Talk about the value of a high school player that wants to play college softball into getting into camps and camping, and not only at your place, any place, but if they want to play the next level, camping is so important for high school players, don't you think?
Oh, very much so. I mean, we've several of our players that are here or that are committed here, we saw first at our camp or a camp that I was working. It didn't necessarily have to be our camp. There's camps all over the state where there'll be 10 of us college coaches there, and that's where we see a lot of them. Another way we see them is we just by luck, we go out and we watch this team play, and we may see somebody on the other team or see a teammate of the one we're watching, but that's the biggest 2 ways. Is the main way is to get at camp and come and introduce yourself and let us see you face to face, and get to work with you one-on-one. And that's, to me, that's the biggest way to get in front of coaches.
That's awesome, Coach. Now, I did have a question about nutrition, and it's a short one. I don't ever leave the table, so you think that's the reason I'm getting so fat? I think that's it.
I think that doesn't help because I have that issue sometimes too. So I think it doesn't help either one of us when we don't want to leave the table.
Bill,
that's not. That's partially true, Coach. Because a lot of times when you talk to him on the phone, he goes, "Hang on just a minute, I've got to order." He's in a drive-thru.
Yeah, I'm guilty. I'm guilty of that as well. We'll be leaving a softball game. Somebody will call me, and I'll say, "Well, just hang on a second. I got to order."
Got to drive-thru.
Right.
Coach, I've got a couple of small things to ask you about. At the junior college level, I mean, at the big college level, it's about fierce competitiveness. And, junior college level, do you junior college coaches kind of sort of work together at times? Because sometimes you may need each other.
Depends on the situation. I mean, when we're talking about being able to compete against each other and, like in the fall, I'll just use this as an example. We're more apt to work with Division II coaches, playing games against them and stuff like that because they're not going to see our players. We actually went up and Coach Guthrie and I worked well together, and we actually played them in the fall and played them in a doubleheader up there. And so, we'll work together and, at camps and stuff, just like I was talking about with the players earlier, when you're off the field, we're still human, and we all realize that. And, we work together well at camps, and, as far as I know, nobody really has any major issues with anybody. And maybe I'm just in my own little world over here and don't care what anybody else is doing. But, for the most part, everybody, they work together, we're at camps and stuff like that. Now, one person may be up talking to a kid and offer them, and somebody else come right behind them and offer them too. But that's just part of the job.
Well, that's just the competitive nature. A lot of times when I'm thinking about that is, advice. A lot of times you can help each other with advice, and and a lot of times coaches are going to be open with that.
Oh yeah, a lot of times, and like I said, everybody's got a pretty good working relationship. So, if we hear something, and we may check around with a couple more and just see if they're hearing the same things, or stuff like that. Yeah, that communication stays pretty open in that aspect.
Yeah, because at some point you're going to need each other. Well, I want to ask
Oh
you
yeah.
about this one other thing. Media wise, I know y'all are probably going to be big on social media. Are y'all getting good coverage, like from the Gadsden newspaper, maybe the Anniston Star? Are your games going to be on radio?
We do get pretty good coverage. As of right now, we've not worked out a deal with any radio stations, but we get pretty good coverage from the news, and Average Joe's, they do some things over here at Gadsden State as well. Them being so local, that helps a lot. But we get some pretty good coverage from our local
Yeah,
news channels.
yeah. Because
But
that's
if
if
I
there's
don't know if the Friday night show from WQSB wanted to start doing live softball games, you guys just let me know. We'll set that up.
Oh, okay. You have to talk to Jeff on that one. He might be
Yeah.
open for something like that.
Oh
You,
yeah.
you don't ever know. But yeah, I mean, because that's very important. Because these kids like to hear their names. They want to see their name in the newspaper. Because naturally, if you're playing a softball season, you want to keep them press clippings, especially if you've got a good picture in the paper.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's one thing that I think that we are improving on. We've had a lot of turnover in PR and being able to push that stuff to the newspaper, but I think that we're in the right direction, and we're going to get some pretty good coverage out of what we've got going here at Gadsden.
Yeah. Well, that sounds good, Coach. Sounds like you got everything going in a good direction. Of course, naturally, we want to wish you the best of luck. I know season's going to start, and of course, winning's very important, but, making these young ladies winners in the game of life, that's the most important thing.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Coach, want to extend the invitation. We'll see you back about summer, because until then, you don't want to talk to us, and you ain't got no reason to talk to us because you're going to be busy. But you have a great season, and thank you for all you do to give us time and get on here and discuss what's going on. It's a wonderful thing what's happening with girls softball. And I just bought baseball tickets and women's softball tickets at UT today. And when
That's what I'm talking about.
I bought women's softball tickets just because I enjoy it just as much as a great baseball game.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. If you want to get rid of any of those softball tickets, just let me know. We might can work out something. So
I might Gadsden State tickets we can exchange there too.
hey, yeah, we can do that. But yeah, I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate everything you do for the local area for athletics in general. But yeah, I know it's greatly appreciated by people in the community, and getting to put our teams out there and talk a little bit about our teams.
The funny thing about it, Coach, and I feel like you're a friend of mine, and I'll speak with you honestly. We're the ones that win because we get to talk about young people we all love and enjoy being around, and get to spend time with great coaches. I can't think of anything funner than getting on here and talking to a coach that we really look up to and have success with, and it's so much fun. It's a win-win. Get to expose the kids, and we get to win by getting. I told somebody the other day, I'm 36 years into being a senior in a high school now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, that's true. I would love, I would love to do what you guys do one day after I finish this coaching journey I'm on, because there's nothing better than talking about sports in general, and we can sit and talk about any sport you wanted to, and I'd be all for it. So,
Coach, in 36 years, they still ain't let me start a game though. So that's
maybe,
my.
Yeah, well, I guess maybe there's still some time. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm almost 6 running out.
Yeah.
Hey, that's Harris in the middle. That's Coach Ryan Clark. And thank you for your time. I'm Randall Cunningham, and you've been beyond the booth.